Hello again, welcome back inside the Tier 4 studio here in Morgantown, West Virginia. You know me, for the Charleston Daily Mail, I am Mike Casazza. I know you are in luck. Today, West Virginia had its second practice of spring football open to the public. I could not get to the first one last week at Wheeling Island Stadium, which means I've only seen the team once in person during the entire spring session here, and that was the first 30 minutes of the first spring practice almost 4 weeks ago now. What did I learn about the team then? Nothing. That's all conceptual stuff. It's a starting point about where they want to begin and from where they'll grow, which means today, 4 weeks, 9 practices later, we got a pretty good idea. You saw a much more advanced version of the Mountaineers. We'll get into all that. I want to go over the very beginning here because it's kind of consistent with what Dana Holgorsen has talked about as far back as how his players attacked the off-season strength and conditioning program. You know, great energy, great excitement, good participation. Well, all the way to now, Dana Holgorsen said the same things before practice today. He's been very complimentary of how his team seems invested in getting right the many things that went wrong last season. He says there's always good energy. The players are really excited. And boy, if you didn't believe it, you bought it right away. They opened up with the Oklahoma drill. You all seem to like that very much. If you're not familiar, it's pretty simple stuff. There's a bunch of different lineups of players across the field. It's a quarterback turning around, handing it to a running back or a receiver sometimes, and he's trying to use a block from a teammate to get past the defensive back, and then you come back and you repeat it with the different core players every time. It's exciting. It's a good way to get the juices flowing before practice. People love it. For whatever reason today, and I have to think this is becoming a battle between these two guys because when they lined up, heads turned and watched. It was Vernon Davis against KJ Dillon in the Oklahoma drill, which means Vernon blocking KJ as a teammate of Vernon's tries to run by KJ. If you're not familiar with Vernon Davis, formerly a cornerback at the U, I guess formerly a cornerback at West Virginia too. He's now an inside receiver. He's also lacking a couple of inches, a couple pounds, some muscle in comparison to KJ Dillon. What happens? Well, everybody was ready for it, and like I said, they were surrounded by a wall of teammates and coaches who were ready for this. I have to think that these guys have done this before, and people were really excited about watching it again, but the whistle blows, the handoff happens, and bam, Davis puts Dillon in the turf, and the teammate gets by, everybody celebrates, they dogpile on top of Vernon Davis. That happens a lot, you figure, right? Maybe so, but Vernon Davis is wearing the green penny, which means limited participation. It means he was probably hurt before, maybe he's hurt right now. At the minimum, he's nicked or dinged, I guess. He's not allowed to do full participation, certainly full contact in practice. Well, he's doing the Oklahoma drill. He obviously does it with aplomb. And Dana Holgorsen blows the whistle. He tells an equipment manager to go fetch the white 81, and Davis slips that back on. He's a full participant in practice the rest of the day. A small thing, maybe it's very big. Let's see what happens to Davis the rest of the way. Let's get into the stuff you want to talk about. Quarterbacks, I'm sure, and I'm sure it's going to begin with Skyler Howard. Howard had good, but mostly indifferent to bad moments today, I guess. Paul Millard, to be quite honest with you, had the best day of the three quarterbacks, and frankly, the difference between Logan Moore and Skyler Howard was probably negligible, I guess. They did a lot of similar things, made some similar mistakes. Millard, though, moved the ball in the live offense against defense drills, didn't make very many mistakes, did some of the things that you come to expect him to do, decisions, strength of his throws, but he had the better day. The opinion, I guess, of Skyler Howard after watching him go now for the first time, really, probably similar to what a lot of people think, maybe even what I thought 4 weeks ago. Quick release. He does seem to make up his mind and go in that direction pretty quickly. Not always a good thing because he just doesn't know a whole lot now, but as the base of knowledge increases, expands, as he gets more and more comfortable, well, certainly a good trait to have to trust your instinct and to go somewhere right away. So the more he knows about where to go, and the more he can blend in the authoritative nature to go where he wants to go with it, that's obviously something they can build on. The arm is the arm. I think throws that require some distance and not a lot of air under him. Accuracy is a problem right now. Maybe it gets better with repetition, but just some things, whether it's deep balls across the middle that have to be on a line, whether it's that throw that West Virginia likes to have their quarterbacks make from a hash to the sideline, usually diagonal, about 40 yards in that throw sometimes, and you figure the out and the up. That's a hard thing for him to do sometimes. Can it get better? Sure, but right now, those are not his strengths. He threw an interception in the end zone, had an open receiver, put too much air under it, and the safety got underneath it. Got to see a lot of good-on-good football today. I'm not just talking 7s-on-7s. I mean 1s-on-1s. going in 11 on 11 from the 20, from the 10. If they got stuck at the goal line on fourth down, they went for it. If they needed to kick a field goal on fourth and long, they did that. It was actual football, which again, that's a benefit of having 70 people on scholarship here for spring football as opposed to 50. You got more guys who need reps, which means you're going to play more and more football to get those guys the development they need. And this team is going to be further along April 13th, the day after spring football, than they were last year. And when you open up against Alabama in August, that's a good thing because you want to start fast in August and keep going. But anyways, back to the competition of offense against defense. The offense got the better of the defense, I think, most of that time, with a few exceptions. But let's see how the offenses and the defenses lined up. First offense, and take this for what you want, Howard was the quarterback, Dreamus Smith and Wendell Smallwood are the running backs. Your offensive line, as you expect, the tackles were Adam Pankey and Marquise Lucas. The guards were Quentin Spain and Mark Lewinsky. And the center was Tyler Orlowski. 5 linemen, 3 in the backfield. That means 3 receivers. No surprises here. Kevin White, Da'Keil Shorts, Mario Alford. Let me call a timeout for a second and tell you about Kevin White. I don't know if he lived in the weight room in the winter or if he was just wearing very small clothes that were tight and made him look enormous, but he looks enormous. His legs, his arms, he just looks a lot stronger. And I was elbowing people watching going, do you see this? And people came up to me and said, did you see White? He looks like a different guy. And again, they got him playing tight end on the kickoff block. That's a spot that guys like Garrett Hope and Cody Clay usually play. Kevin White is playing that and doing a pretty good job. That's an idea of how big and also how agile he is. Certainly he has to be better up the rail this year, but when a guy's that big and certainly has that ability and that strength, you kind of cross your fingers and think, maybe this will work. Going to the defense right now, they did not have Kyle Rose today. He had a family situation to tend to, so he was away. So that left Noble Wachukwu at one defensive end and Dontrell Hyman at the other. In the middle, no surprise here, Christian Brown. Your linebackers, Isaiah Bruce, Nick Kwiatkowski, Brandon Golston, and KJ Dillon. We'll get to that in a second. Your cornerbacks, Daryl Worley, Ickey Banks. Your safeties, obviously, Carl Joseph and Ricky Rumpf. Give yourself 2 points if you had Ricky Rumpf leading the competition, really going downhill now toward the finish. And he intercepted Millard in the end zone when, again, Howard in the end zone when, again, Howard had a space and just couldn't get that ball there on the line. He needed to. Rumpf made a good play, kind of stepped in front of it, picked the ball off, got his feet down. It was nice to see. How'd they do against each other? Again, I thought the defense got the better. But I will say this about the defense, though. This looks and sounds a lot more like a 3-3-5. It's versatile. It does line up a little bit differently, but this is not a 3-4 like you saw maybe at times last year. And again, up to and including how they use Dillon. Dillon plays a lot at that 4th linebacker, which is more of like a nickel hybrid position, but that's what they look like they want to do right now. They did a lot with that today. Maybe it was just a one-day thing where they wanted to give that a spin. Maybe not, which leads me to this. Both Dana Holgorsen and Tony Gibson said today that this defense is not going to make as many paralysis by analysis mistakes that last year's defense did. This team, I guess, is not going to be as bogged down by having to know as many different formations, assignments, responsibilities, and I wasn't aware that was a problem as much last year. I just thought that their ineptness, I guess, was because of injuries and inexperience, just not being good enough with enough people. Now you're getting an idea maybe it was a little bit different. Maybe West Virginia was biting off more than it could chew, and they're trying to fix that right now. So much so that Tony Gibson says they're doing less, they're doing more with it, and that they will have everything installed and in place this time next week, which means the final 3 practices leading up to the spring game. Well, that's just going to be refining everything that they did the first 12 practices, and when the preseason practice comes along in August, they're not going to add anything. Again, when you're opening up against Alabama and when you're trying to get as many guys going that you had in the spring, you want to get them going in the summer, it helps if you have everything in, obviously, and that's the aim right now for the defense. Offensively, again, the quarterback play, Millard had the better of the days, but I think your guy you're going to watch throughout the spring here moving forward, this is Wendell Smallwood's spring, it seems like. They're grooming him, and we wrote about this and talked about this last year, to play the Charles Sims role. They line him up in the slot. They moved him out of the backfield. They handed him the ball. He did a lot of stuff today, and Holgorsen said that right now he is the team's 2nd best slot receiver behind Da'Keil Shorts. That may be true. That may be a poke at Jordan Thompson or Jackie Marcellus, who did not practice today, or it may just be reality. And if this is about getting your best 5 guys in the field on offense, well, certainly White, Alford, Shorts, Russell Shell, Wendell Smallwood. Smallwood's in that top 5, right? So where do you line them up? Do you go 2 backs, motion them out? Maybe you do that. The next snap, you just hurry up and you keep them there in the slot, and the defense has to adjust to find out where number 4 is. It's a lot like they used Sims last year, especially deeper in the season. I think this is Smallwood's spring to take and run with. Let's see how it goes. One more thing that was interesting to me, and we'll see how this happens, I thought Dustin Garrison had a pretty nice day today, and he did a lot of inside runs. And one thing in particular that I caught, that some people next to me were asking me about, we were talking about, they went under center with an H-back on the right side a bunch. One, you don't see West Virginia go under center very much. Two, they don't use the H-back very much. But they had the H-back, and they had him on the right side with 2 receivers, which means you have your guard, your tackle, your H-back, and 2 receivers on the right side. West Virginia ran that ball up the middle and had the cut back to the left. It was a great play a couple times. I thought Dustin Garrison ran it very well. And then on one beautiful play off of that, they had the H-back with 2 receivers, and they faked it on an inside run to Garrison. Millard rolled out left, flipped the pass, wide open. Cody Clay in the end zone. There was 2 options there. They had Clay in the end zone, and they had Eli Wellman underneath. They put that linebacker in conflict. Do you go chase Clay? Do you come underneath and stop Wellman? Well, he tried to cut off Wellman, left Clay open. Millard made a good play. Again, Millard made a lot of good plays today. Maybe he's in the lead right now. Maybe it's a situation where Howard just needs more time. But for one day, Millard was better. The offense was better than the defense. And West Virginia concluded a practice, I think, feeling pretty good about where they were and as they move forward toward the end. Catch me next time. Mike Casazza, Daily Mail. Thanks for coming by.